Newsweek critic David Ansen calls this film a huge party cake of a movie with too much frosting. After the first delicious bite, sugar shock sets in. Hal Hinson of the Washington Post calls it big, splashy, energetic, one-size-fits-all Hollywood entertainment. And Letterboxd user Daniel Soros says it's one of those rare cinematic curiosities where you can tell instantly how old someone was when they first saw the film based upon their reaction to it today. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Hook.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Bangarang, Starfighters!
Bangarang, bangarang! Rufio, Rufio, Rufio!
Hey, welcome to Ruined Childhoods, where we make references to the movie before we even mention what it is.
You know, I feel like Hook is one that, at least for my generation, I was born in 83, like for my specific age range, everybody has this movie playing on repeat in their head at all times.
I think so. It's definitely, I would say, a millennials classic.
Yeah, for sure. It's just one of those where it came just at the right time for so many of us, where it gave us all of these tasty morsels that we all just absolutely go nuts for. And it had such an awesome cast for its time. 1991.
Yeah.
Love
it. Yeah. And if we haven't mentioned, first of all, I'm Dan. That's John.
I know. We are
It's
just
Ruined
going
Childhoods.
right into this. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here to have a little chat with my big brother, Dan. Dan, you've got a birthday coming up. I don't know what it's going to be a few days after this drops.
Yes. So yes, please honor me by listening. Well, you're listening to this already, so thank you. I am honored.
Yeah, and Dan, I don't have anything that I wanted to mention about news stuff or anything having to do with our last episode or anything. Do you have anything before we just really get into Hook?
I guess I have a brief one more thing, and this just goes on this was just kind of I don't know, thought tangent I went on the other day.
Oh.
In thinking about Grease. And
okay.
Wondering, I was thinking about Grease. I was thinking about Danny Zuko, and I was like, Grease takes place in Southern California. And I was like, I would love a prequel about the Zuko family, in Brooklyn.
Well, how about just the fact that there's this overwhelming number of Italian American kids in this one particular school in Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, Zuko, I guess Stephanie and then Stephanie Zuccarelli. I mean, they're really the only, Sunny kind of has that Italian.
They all talk, even Kaneki, they talk with this very Brooklyn accent.
Right. Yeah. They play it very, very Brooklyn. But I was thinking about Triple. Maybe it was Saturday Night Fever was on the brain or something. And then
are you talking about doing the Many Saints of Rydell type of situation?
The Many T-Birds of Rydell.
Yeah.
little T-Birds. Yeah, except it would, actually be about
oh, all right. Well,
Danny Zuko. We talked about Many Saints of Newark on the did we?
I think that was off mic.
That was off mic that we talked about Many Saints of Newark. Anyway, I don't want to look. It's a current movie. I don't want to talk about it right now. So.
There's one thing that I did actually, now that we're thinking about it, wanted to bring up. We talked about how for Space Camp, there is a reboot currently being written for Disney by Streeter Seidel,
who was a writer on the new Home Alone reboot, Home Sweet Home Alone. And they released a trailer in the week between when we released that episode, or when we recorded that episode of this one. And I got to say, it looks really good.
I haven't seen the trailer, but I saw the like poster art for it. And I thought to myself, I was like, this could be a reboot that works.
It's got a really good cast. And it seems like it honors the original. The guy who plays Buzz is in it. And it shows his like
Devin
name
Rattray.
tag. It says McAllister. Oh, there you go. And
I have met Devin Rattray. Yes.
Have you? Oh,
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. No, he was, I think, friendly with my friend Lynn, who was doing a show, and I forget how he was involved because the cast of the show was all women. He wasn't in it. But we were filming, like I was working with a crew that was filming the show. And so, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like oh, wow, you're Buzz from Home Alone. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, hey, I'm Dan. How you doing? That's it. Yeah.
That's how introductions tend to go.
It was also like on the job type thing. But anyway, yeah, it does look, I'm looking.
Yeah, check out the trailer. It looks like a lot of fun. It has a really lovely cast. Yeah, check it out. But we're going to talk about Hook.
Talking about Hook, John, why don't we jump into that synopsis here?
All right, before I do a synopsis,
okay.
Of course, like if you don't know by now, here's the deal. This is inspired by and loosely based on the story of Peter Pan, which is really the story of Peter and Wendy is the name of the book, I believe, or Wendy and Peter. I feel like a lot of people's memories about Peter Pan are memories of the Disney-fied version of Peter Pan. And it seems like this, even though it's not a Disney production, it's an Amblin and TriStar.
Oh, boy.
I saw the TriStar emblem coming up and I was like, oh, Dan's so psyched right now watching this somewhere. And yeah.
It is no insult to the movie. It is no insult at all to the movie to say that was my favorite moment of watching it.
But no, it definitely plays on the, more children's version of what happened. The Disney-fied version.
Yeah.
That type of situation. And so here's my synopsis. And this takes place at present day in 1991. Unaware of his legendary past, Peter Pan is now known as Peter Banning, an accountant turned lawyer and father of two, who is about to make his debut of his wife's grandmother Wendy's charity for orphans. What makes Wendy special is the rumor is that she's the actual Wendy from the Peter Pan stories. One night in England, Peter's kids are visited in the night by Captain James Hook and brought to Never Never Land in an effort to lure Peter Pan back to pay for his crimes against the infamous pirate. Peter is visited by a magical entity who wants to help him find his kids, Phil Collins. After that, Tinkerbell comes to help Peter remember who he is so he can rescue his kids. Being a stubborn, selfish, and no-fun old man, he refuses to believe not only what she says, but her entire existence. That's when she takes things into her own hands and just knocks him out and schleps his ass back to Never Never Land. After seeing Hook threatening his children, Peter reveals himself, which is shocking for the legendary captain. When it becomes clear that Peter isn't the bangarang he used to be, Hook is bummed that he won't have the fight he's been hoping for. Tink makes a deal with Hook to give Peter 3 days to find his crow or else he forfeits. Peter is brought to the Lost Boys, most of whom were with Peter in the good old days. But now, Peter is just some middle-aged guy, and it's clear to the Lost Boys, especially their leader, Rufio. At that night's, quote, dinner, unquote, Peter and Rufio have an insult exchange that transforms Peter into a believer. He spends the next 2 days training and learning to fly. On one excursion to taunt Hook, Peter sees his son Jack in an all-pirate baseball game, an activity that Peter famously misses at the beginning of the movie. He's so overcome with pride that he forgets his mission to steal Hook's hook. But after Jack hits a home run, he hears Hook call Jack, "My Jack," and Peter is brought back into a shell of a panic. But after he is hit in the head by Jack's home run baseball, he disassociates and follows his shadow into a small hidden room under a tree. With help from Tink, he recognizes it as Wendy's room. After connecting a few dots, he is back to being the Pan everyone in Neverland remembers. Now able to fly, he plays with the Lost Boys and wins respect of Rufio. For a bit, he has now forgotten about Peter Banning and the Banning kids, Jack and Maggie. Tink helps him snap out of it. He hatches a plan with the Lost Boys and they get to Captain Hook's ship just in time to prevent Jack from getting a hook ear piercing from the captain. They brawl and Peter reveals his true self to his kids. They all learn to appreciate each other more, and after taking care of Hook with help from a giant dead crocodile, they head back to London so that Phil Collins can sleep knowing justice has been served. So,
And to that we say Susudio.
Susudio. I know I was trying to see if there was like a Phil Collins song where it's like, you know, I could tie it in there. It's like,
there's something coming in the air tonight. It's
Yeah.
Hook to take the kids.
Well, that's what I was trying to think for like the beginning part of it. And I was like, I don't know if I, you know, really want to spend my time figuring out how to do
Tink seems to have an invisible touch.
that. Yeah.
Against
So,
all odds, Peter
against all
becomes
odds,
the
right.
Peter Pan. So,
Yeah.
I got so excited.
He arrives at Neverland, no jacket required.
You know what I noticed about this movie? It's a reverse Mrs. Doubtfire.
It's a reverse Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay.
It's like a reverse, not a kind of a reverse Mrs. Doubtfire, but it's like he's too serious. Like Peter Banning at the beginning of this movie is like Sally Field in Mrs. Doubtfire's
I see what you're saying.
ideal.
Yeah.
I mean, on
Well,
the
he's no
machine,
Stuart
Rose, on the
Dunmire.
machine.
This whole time.
I have to take a brief tangent as I was directing a high school play version of the 39 Steps, and there's like a couple of lines, like this character has a couple of lines where they have to do that, like they say the same thing twice, but it needs different inflection. And I was so on the verge of being like, you know, like do it Sally Field, and then I realized I was like, that will go nowhere with this like 15-year-old.
Watch Soap Dish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know how Sally Field does that thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, and she's so good at it. We love that Sally.
We love
Field,
Sally
don't
Field.
we?
But anyway, she's not in this. But
No.
yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was like, how many movies does how many movies is there like this thing about like Robin Williams being a
Well, I'm thinking about it, and I'm not like referencing anything at the moment, but this I want to say this is among the first of his like family movies, because before this, I mean, this is the same year as Fisher King, as we mentioned in our Fisher King episode, but you know, Good Morning Vietnam, like there are so many other movies where he was. I mean, they were still like funny in
no, but
ways
this
and stuff,
like
but
Cadillac Man is not a family movie.
Cadillac Man, yeah. And then after this, you know, we have things like Jack, and we have Mrs.
Flubber.
Doubtfire, Flubber. You know, this is where we really get into family film Robin Williams.
But it's interesting how many of these roles, because I wrote down in my notes that Mrs. Doubtfire is what happens when Peter Pan comes to the real world and gets old but doesn't actually grow up. And then Jack is what happens when he physically ages really fast but mentally stays a child, though in a more medical condition type of way. I've never actually seen all of Jack. I've seen parts of it.
So, you know, I don't think I've seen all of Jack, but his like friend in it is somebody who I went to college with. Which is just a bit of information. It was lived down the hall for me our freshman year. But yeah, just looking at his filmography, it's like The World According to Garp, Moscow on the Hudson, Club Paradise, Good Morning Vietnam, Adventures of Baron Munchausen, Dead Poet Society, Cadillac Man, Awakenings. I mean, a brief appearance in Shakes the Clown, which is despite the clowniness, not for children,
Not a
definitely
family
for
film.
children.
No.
Dead Again. And of course, Popeye would probably be the closest thing to a family film.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like it's most appreciated by adults, it presents as a family film.
Yeah, it makes me. I'm interested now. I'm like kind of curious. Like I kind of want to watch Popeye with Chloe, my 7.5-year-old.
Oh yeah.
I would be interested to see how a kid now looks at him. I mean, like I watched Popeye as a kid, and like I thought it was fine, but
together.
like you watch it now, and you just can.
Well, I watch it now, and I watch it from the mindset of like, oh, it's the music of Harry Nilsson, it's Robert Altman, it's Robin Williams' first movie, Shelley Duvall. Like, there's just so many other aspects of it that I see it for now, as opposed to when I was a kid. And there's certain things I remember from it, some of the songs and some of the mannerisms that Robin Williams or Shelley Duvall
I would
had.
gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Yeah. And Bill Irwin is in it, so that's fun.
Bill Irwin is in it, yes. But so now this is 11 years after Popeye, but that's 30 years ago from now.
I know.
And
when was Hook released?
December
11th.
91.
Okay. So we're creeping up on the anniversary.
And this was one that we both saw at the same time for the first time.
Did we?
This was a family Christmas movie for us.
Oh, I mean, here's the thing is like, I knew that I had to have seen this in the theater. Like, this is just one of those movies at that time in my life where it's like, there's no way I didn't see this in the theater.
We saw it at the New Park Cinemas in Roselle Park, New Jersey, and it was a family outing. And I think this movie was like the first time where our father really expressed his like dislike of going to kids' movies, where there will be kids in the audience.
He likes Dustin Hoffman. Come on.
Well, no, I think had it not been for Dustin Hoffman in the movie, I don't think we might have told him it was a Graduate sequel and got him to go that way.
Yeah, like he would have believed children that something was a Graduate sequel.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I remember. So we saw it. Yeah, we saw it together, and it's like you're right when you're like at that age. I mean, I remember really enjoying it as a kid, being a little bit older. But I would imagine being, 8. Were you 8? You were 8 when that came out, 8.5.
Yep.
Like that's the sweet spot for Hook, I think, because
I think so. Yeah,
it's like approximately the age of Jack, played by 1990-91 hit machine Charlie Korsmo.
Yeah, he came in there, did Dick Tracy. He was in this. He was in What About Bob? And then he was like, "Peace, I'm gonna become a lawyer." And then he did.
He did Can't Hardly Wait. He was really good in Can't Hardly Wait.
He did Can't Hardly Wait. That's right.
I really liked him in that.
I mean, he's in just a few movies, and they're all like hits. Man.
It's him.
I mean,
and
Dick Tracy, if you would call it that, but it
him and John Cazale, they're the two.
Yeah. Charlie
and
Korsmo James Dean. He left the game under different circumstances.
So did John Cazale.
But so did John Cazale, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so and the girl who played Maggie was totally fine. I feel like that character was a little ignored, to say the least. It's just kind of like she's there and sings a song and then she's out.
Yeah. She's there. She sings the song. Oh, that song. I keep hearing, so like, it's funny because I hear the music in this movie. I hear that song and I'm like, oh man, too bad John Williams already wrote somewhere in my memory, like the year before for Home Alone. And I hear a lot of the music and I was like, oh, these are like the rough drafts of his Harry Potter score.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, the thing about Hook is like, it's perfectly enjoyable. And I think that you have to put yourself into like the 1991 mindset to be able to appreciate it. Otherwise, you're just going to be like looking at all the flaws. I don't know. And also it's like, it's one of those movies where it is trying to accomplish something, and I don't know, it seems like the focus got like shifted, and it's like they're trying to cram too much stuff in, and I don't know, things just seem a little unnecessary. Like I felt like the whole Tinkerbell subplot was like, we have Julia Roberts, we need to just like cram in a bunch of Julia Roberts stuff. And I felt like
awkward.
I never even I remember even like as a kid watching it, I never felt like she was right for the role. It's just that she was a big name at the time.
Yeah, and I mean it's it's kind of I guess like some backstage news, like she was I think going through a divorce.
She her engagement to Kiefer Sutherland had just has just gotten broken. Jiminy? Yeah, so I think that was the deal with that, and like she was fresh off of that. Allegedly, whatever, I don't know the deal with that, but
yeah, no, and it was like Steven Spielberg, like she got that like difficult reputation, which I think has kind of been amended to be like, oh yeah, she was like 23 years old and going through like the 23 years old, like one of the biggest stars on the planet, all of a sudden out of nowhere. I mean, I guess not out of nowhere by this point, man. I think she had 2 Oscar nominations under her belt.
Yeah. So it couldn't have been easy to be Julia Roberts, like, just living your life.
No, and then you're playing this part that's like, I imagine a lot of her performance was done in front of like a blue screen, and and then,
or on sets with like gigantic, prop pieces.
Yeah. So she's. It's not the best. It's definitely more of a, hey, we can get a big star in this movie. We can put Julia Roberts in this movie, and that was pretty much it.
Okay, you look at the cast of this movie, Charlie Korsmo aside, clearly Robin Williams doing great at the time, Dustin Hoffman clearly doing great at the time, Julia Roberts, Bob Hoskins, and you've got Maggie Smith, who they've aged up so much that it's like you look at her now and it's like she looks better now than she did in the makeup, like from
she
then.
Looks the same.
Yeah, I know, and it's like incredible. She's so good.
And
then you have those cameos. You got Phil Collins and Glenn Close and
David Crosby. Cross has a few nice moments in this movie. Like,
yes, he does.
Yeah, he's the hurdy-gurdy pirate.
Yeah. And I don't know. It seemed to me like the kind of movie that was made to be able to just like shovel in a bunch of money using like a familiar IP and, a little gimmick. Peter
So very
Pan,
much ahead of its time.
Yeah, totally. But it's like there's something so weird about the fact that he has completely forgotten about this like character defining aspect of his past. Like, what is it about leaving Never Never Land that makes you completely forget about who you are?
Or going to Never Never Land and staying there for an extended period of time. Because that's what seems. Yeah, I think the rules. So that's one thing that's a bit fuzzy in this movie is like the rules of how things work. So like, okay, do kids, like when kids end up going to Never Never Land, do they age to a certain point and then they stop? Because are they like
So from my understanding, I'm not clearing my throat to like for dramatic effect. From my understanding, and Dan, have you read the original book?
I have not.
Neither have I, but from my understanding, the deal is that Peter Pan is this boy, or Peter, whatever, is this boy who gets to be about like puberty age and is about to become like, go from like child to young adult, and doesn't want to become an adult. So goes to this land and goes to this place in order to not have to deal with growing up. And so I get the impression that the rule of Neverland is that you just kind of get there and you stop at that time. But what's weird is that he goes there as a baby. So it's like, does he just go back to the real world enough times to age a little bit and then go back? Like, it's a little unclear as to like exactly what the deal is.
I mean, also, like, what's up with all the pirates there? Like, how did they get there? And if they're there, like, do they age? And what's the deal with that?
Yeah. Well, another thing is, like, you know, the character of Jack, Peter Pan's son, at a certain point, he like forgets who his father is and like where his home is. And he is like, no, Captain Hook is my dad. Like,
well,
he's
but
convinced
Peter
of it.
also has that. He also like kind of forgets.
Right. No, totally. Yeah.
So, but they don't really establish it. It's not established like in Back to the Future where it's like, oh, if this doesn't happen, your sister's going to disappear from the photo.
Well, and that's where Tinkerbell would have come in really handy. Is instead of having this whole thing where she like becomes a big person and kisses him and whatever, and there's all this weirdness, for her to act as the explainer of everything, to just be
exposition.
like, yeah, exactly.
We need some Big Trouble in Little China style exposition.
We need
Gracie
somebody.
Law.
Right. I'm just thinking of, Steven Seagal in Under Siege explaining everything to Erica Eleniak. Like, so this is what this is because, you know, you're stupid. You have no idea what's going on. So I'm just going to explain everything to you. And so we need somebody just to like explain how this place works. Like, what exactly are the mechanics of this world that make your brain just turn to mush? And how come Maggie is unaffected? Like, is it just the fact that she's been like ignored the whole movie aside from like her little song? Like, I don't know what's going on.
No, I think that's kind of
And then when they come back from Never Never Land, he's all just like, the windows stay open. And they, you know, gives Toodles his marbles back and so on and so forth.
Yeah. There's definitely right. And you're right, where if you watch it from the mindset of an adult in 2021, that's kind of what you're going to focus on. Like, I definitely was like the whole Tinkerbell, like going to full size, and like, that's her wish. Her one wish for herself is that she could like become full size and kiss Peter. And just like, I don't know what the actual age difference between Julia Roberts and Robin Williams was, but I don't know. There was just something really off about it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I wasn't sure how much of the history was in the books, but I actually want to go back and talk about, give it like some props to Bob Hoskins, who I feel like
Bob Hoskins he was delightful.
In terms of performances, that's my favorite one.
He's great. I always loved that scene where like he's almost just like, oh no, everything is fucked. I better take as much as I can grab and get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's and in fact,
when
like,
he's in the baseball scene when he's pitching, like he really hams it up. I love it.
Bob Hoskins is going all out in this. And it also like, it's one of those elements that really called back the Disney Peter Pan.
Yeah.
True,
because like he's very cartoonish.
The clumsy, groveling Smee was just like that, to me, called back the Disney Peter Pan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. I think Dustin Hoffman was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin Hoffman is great. Such a memorable performance. And I feel like he's one of those actors where you see him a lot and you feel like he's taking himself very, very seriously. Even when he's doing like comedic roles. I mean, if you'd count Tootsie as like a comedic role, like I feel like Dustin Hoffman. Well, right, but that's also much later on. And but I feel like in something like this, it's like, oh, he's just straight up having fun. and really milking this performance because that's what this performance needs to be done. Like that's how it's supposed to go.
Right, and it's not a it's an out of type character for him. It's not, and it's funny because I think like I remember reading that when the script kind of was first coming around into existence, he was the first choice for Hook, and this was like I think like not long after Tootsie that it started. Though there were though I also read David Bowie was considered. Just as Michael Jackson was interested in playing Peter, though I don't see how that would have, like the Peter Banning part. Like I can't see Michael Jackson as like a
but I mean,
lawyer.
Right, totally. But knowing how Michael Jackson had this Peter Pan obsession,
you know how much this deal means to me.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Dan, did you know that, Steven Spielberg was, originally the one that was going to be doing this at the beginning. And then when he got busy, it ended up going to, do you know which director?
Was it going to be Scorsese?
Nick Castle.
Oh, Nick Castle, yes.
Starfighter.
Yes. No, I'm sorry. I was thinking about Steven Spielberg was going to direct Cape Fear. And it was because Cape Fear is an Amblin production, the 1991 Cape Fear. And yeah, I think Spielberg left Cape Fear and kind of, I guess, asked Scorsese to do it and went and did Hook. And I think the world is a better place for that. So
I agree. I mean, a Spielberg Cape Fear. I don't know about that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it just would have it would have been like a less I don't want to say less stylized because it's not like Spielberg doesn't have style, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like Cape Fear is one of I feel very I'm very fond of Cape Fear.
I think that Cape Fear is excellent. I watched it not too long ago. It was it's a great film.
It is highly
and I also want to
rewatchable.
mention that Joseph Mazzello, the kid from Jurassic Park, was considered for the role of Jack in this. And Steven Spielberg said, like, you know what? You didn't get the part, but I have you in mind for something else, Jurassic Park. And the world is better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I heard that originally in the role of the police officer was Peter Gabriel, and then he left and Phil Collins. Kidding.
Oh,
Kidding.
Genesis humor.
If you
Genesis
understand the humor, you get the genesis of that joke.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to exodus us over to another part of the show. So, Dan, I don't know, like when we brought up the idea of doing this movie for this episode, I felt like you seemed a little reluctant. And I'm wondering if perhaps this isn't really a movie that speaks to you. What?
That it isn't a movie that speaks to me?
Well, I feel like for people born in my very specific, like, date range, it's a more iconic film. It's more of a movie that, like, was a marker for our generation, whereas you are a few years older than I am. And I feel like for you, this might have been more of like it's for little kids kind of movie.
I didn't feel that way. All right. Partially yes, and partially no. Like there were some things in it that I just always felt I was like, well, that's just in there to make kids chuckle, like the whatever crazy like Nickelodeon color food that they imagine when they're having their. By the way, do they just not eat? Do they just imagine food? Or I see. There we go. More logic, but there were some aspects that I did feel were too much, not just because they were geared towards kids, but because they were childlike. I mean, or there was no explanation, and it's like, all right, kids aren't going to like ask questions or look for the logic.
Well, I suppose that also goes with the spirit of the movie in the sense that for those who live in Neverland, it's all about using your imagination. Yeah. And I think that there's the suspension of disbelief that needs to come into play for the audience in order to be able to watch the movie without like getting in your own way of enjoying it. Which when you are an 8-year-old, there is no part of you that's getting in the way because you're all there. You're all in already.
No, honestly, I think my reluctance to cover this movie came mostly from just that, like, all right, I remember seeing this as a kid, or when I was, younger, like early. I think I was like 14 when this came out, and I remember really liking it, and I just remember thinking, like, whenever the last time was I tried to watch it, I just didn't. It didn't have that same thing for me. So I think I was kind of like, I don't want to watch a movie that I really enjoyed when I was younger and just kind of sit here and tear it apart, which was not my experience while watching it.
Well, I feel like there's a very specific marker for people in my age range. I'd say like my age and a couple of years before and a couple of years after, where the name Rufio strikes a certain chord, such to the point that I just named my new puppy Rufio. And I'm wondering what your take is on the character of Rufio.
What's interesting is that's actually a character that I think I had more qualms with when I was younger.
Really?
And less so now.
Well, it's interesting because it's like this is a character that exists in the Never Neverland universe that is brand new. Whereas like, Peter's kids, of course, they're new to the story, but like for there to be a new main character in this land of make-believe is kind of like a more special thing. And he's like very, 90s out, red, spiky, crazy hair, and he rides along this crazy wind sail track thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny because very 90s, but also almost more like 2000s, like extreme sports. Like dyeing your hair different colors.
Right. I mean, it's like very like Gleaming the Cube. Like every character combined in Gleaming the Cube, probably. And I don't know. There's definitely like an element of punk rock to it. Not that he is very punk rock himself, but it's more of like an edgy type of character that you would see played brilliantly by Dante Bosco. Mad respect.
Yeah. And what I was thinking about the character this time was, and this is where kind of analyzing it actually improved it, was thinking about how, well, first of all the other Lost Boys are there. How are they getting there? If Peter was taken to Never Neverland as a baby, which it's kind of similar to the elf setup.
Yeah, that's true.
But he just the idea that like he can't be the only one. I don't get why he's the only one who flies, but that's
right.
Yeah, I don't think that's worth delving into right now. But
we don't know the rules.
But going back to Rufio, I thought that it was kind of like a logical addition, though Rufio was also the one who made me wonder, like, how, like, at what point, like, how long has he been in Neverland? What, like, did he come to Neverland at that age, which seems like a bit old? Because he's what, like 14, 15?
Yeah,
the actor was 16
also,
when he played him.
There are some other like older kids there, but they're kind of in the background, just like smoking cigarettes or whatever. Like it's really the younger kids who are like really ruling the
burnouts
the
of the Lost Boys.
Yeah, they're just over it.
They're the ones who grow up to become pirates.
Yeah. Well, so I want to play just a clip. We're talking about this scene where he needs to use his imagination in order to see this Nickelodeon food, and we get a little bit of a back and forth between Peter and Rufio.
What's the deal? Where's the real food?
If you can't imagine yourself being Peter Pan, you won't be Peter Pan, so eat up.
Eat what? There's nothing here. Gandhi ate more than this.
Don't you remember this used to be your favorite game?
Forget the games. I want some real food. I want steak. I want eggs. I want a cup of coffee.
You can't! Eat your heart out, you crinkled, wrinkled, fat hag!
You're a very ill-mannered young man. Do you know
You're a
that?
slug-eating worm!
Come on, you can do better than that.
Can't believe you're encouraging me.
Yes, show me your fastball, dust brain, you paunchy, sag-bottom, puke pot!
You are a very poor role model for these kids. Do you know that? I bet you don't even have a 4th grade reading level.
Hemorrhoidal suck navel.
Or maybe a 5th grade reading level.
Boil dripping, beef fart sniffing, bubble butt.
Someone has a severe caca mouth. Do you know that?
You are a fart factory. Slug slimed sack of rat guts and cat vomit. Cheesy scab-hicked, pimple-squeezing finger bandage. A week-old maggot burger with everything on it and flies on the side.
Substitute chemistry teacher?
Come on, Rufio, hit him back.
Mung tongue,
Math tutor?
pinhead,
Prison barber?
mother lover.
Nearsighted gynecologist?
In your face, camel cake.
In your rear, cow derriere?
Lion crying, spine prying, ultra pig.
You lewd, crude, rude, bag of pre-chewed food dude?
Bangarang, Peter! You man! Stupid man!
Rufio, if I'm a maggot burger, why don't you just eat me? You two-toned, zebra-headed, slime-coated, pimple-farming, paramecium brain, munching on your own mucus, suffering from Peter Pan envy.
What's the paramecium brain?
I'll tell you what a paramecium is. That's a paramecium. It's a one-cell critter with no brain that can't fly. Don't mess with me, man. I'm a lawyer.
Benny, 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 Benny,
Rufio! Rufio!
Benny, 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 Benny.
Nearsighted gynecologist. How did they get that one in there?
I mean, with the help of a nearsighted gynecologist. I don't know.
I mean, who gave that one the green light to keep that one in? That's kind of incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, who knows how many of those were scripted and how many of them Robin Williams just came up with.
Right. But somebody did edit this movie. Like, there could have been somebody that would be like, this is for kids. Maybe not nearsighted gynecologist.
Yeah, but it's not like he said pussy doctor. I mean,
that's true. That's
like,
true.
He did say, which, by the way, and I'm only saying this because we just had it on upstairs, but like the Eddie Murphy Dr. Dolittle does have a line where an animal calls a tiger a big pussy. So,
gotcha. Okay.
It's kind of like as long as so I think like the nearsighted gynecologist, it's like you've got the like actual name of a type of doctor and a visual condition. So
fair enough.
Nothing too dirty there.
Yeah. So that's the scene where Peter kind of like takes his first like turn into, becoming more of himself, letting his true self be shown. I don't know. So I guess the only thing that I really want to figure out is like, is this movie in its own worthy of a reflection of like a prequel, sequel, reboot, or remake, or because it's kind of its own special outlier in a pre-existing intellectual property, does it have the right to have any kind of treatment like that done to it?
Oh, I mean, does it have the right to?
Like, does it stand enough on its own?
I think that the idea of Peter Pan, and this they set up really, I think this they set up really nicely, is the relationship between Peter and Wendy, and just the balance between growing up and not. And it's like what I don't know that they need to spend more time on it, but the whole idea of Wendy deciding to grow up, making the choice to grow up and get married and have kids, and then that her granddaughter there's another appearance.
Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow is young Maggie. Young Maggie Smith. Sorry.
Young Maggie Smith,
young
right.
Wendy.
She's young Wendy. Right. So but the setup of that, and then how Peter sees Wendy's granddaughter and
sexually assaults her.
Sexually assaults her in her sleep.
Not cool, Peter.
It's
should have just given her the thimble.
And yep, that's it. But I think that setup is interesting enough. I think that focusing on the story of Peter Pan growing up is I mean, I think it's worth kind of like including, like, I don't know who decides what's canon or not in like the Peter Pan franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, also you've got like, this is a TriStar and Amblin production, and I don't know if like necessarily, I mean, there's been so many Peter Pan movies made. There's the one with Jason Isaacs as Captain Hook.
Right, Pan.
Jeremy Sumpter. Oh, there's Pan with Hugh Jackman. Did you see that one?
No.
That was the one with Hugh Jackman as Hook.
Oh, I saw the one with Jason Isaacs as Captain Hook.
So that one was just called Peter Pan. That one I saw.
That one was called Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Right. That was like 2003, maybe, something like that.
Yeah. It was definitely around there. Jason Isaacs is fantastic Captain Hook.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a fun character.
Yeah, no, there were lots of actors that I was thinking about, like, who are different actors that could have played Hook at the time. Not that I had a problem with Dustin Hoffman's performance, but I was like, oh man, a Frank Langella Captain Hook. Ooh. Or
Frank Langella.
A Daniel Day-Lewis Captain Hook, which, I mean, could have happened then and could happen now.
I would love to see like a Paul Thomas Anderson Peter Pan story.
Luis Guzman as Smee.
Hey, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, but that would be, so I don't know. I was thinking about different actors that could have played Hook, though, like I said, Dustin Hoffman is fine. Anyway, back to your question. I think assuming that like we can accept the Peter Banning story as like the logical extension. Yeah.
Well, right. And fully acknowledging the passing of Robin Williams and
yeah. But I do think that I don't think that this is something that's just that should just be locked in I mean, I do think it's something that should be locked in a time capsule, because I would love to see more original works. But I do think that there's potential in using it to,
Well, what were you thinking?
Oh, I had quite a few thoughts here.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know. I was just kind of like throwing a bunch right now. First, I should say that Dante Bosco was involved in making a Rufio prequel. And there's a 17-minute short film out there from a few years ago called Bangarang, and I think it kind of tells the story of how Rufio ended up in Neverland. So
interesting.
I was thinking about, I was like, that could work. A sequel in which a somewhat middle-aged, I don't know if I would like a 35, 40-year-old Maggie kind of like ends up in just like things are not going well. Maybe she's traumatized from being neglected in the script, but she's got a lot going on, and maybe it's like she has these memories of this place called Neverland, and like she's in therapy, and maybe the therapist is like, okay, so you know what? When you need to go to Neverland, go to Neverland. And where the therapist is seeing it as like a little like mindfulness exercise. And then she actually ends up going to Neverland. And like, I mean, it would be hard to have like Rufio, because Dante Bosco has certainly aged. So,
well, also his character dies.
Oh yes, that too.
Yeah.
Yes, his character dies. Right.
Spoiler. Sorry.
Right. So, but you could have where Maggie ends up going to Neverland, and maybe Jack has to rescue her, or maybe she doesn't need to be rescued. Maybe she just stays in Neverland until she's like, I've got my shit worked out. I can go back now. Like of an adult version, but
I have an idea that's. It's not the same as that. It's similar, but go on.
Okay. All right. Because that's not the end of the idea train.
I didn't think so.
I need to just scan through. So another possibility. So this was what I thought was like the most likely thing to happen, is that Disney Plus would eventually do like a live action version of the old musical version of Peter Pan. And then they could make like a sequel, or they could make a remake of Hook with like, I don't know, like fucking Paul Rudd as Peter Pan, and like John C. Reilly as Smee, and Steve Coogan as Hook, or something like that.
Oh, Steve Coogan would be a great Hook.
I was like, Steve Coogan would be an awesome Hook, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that. It's not what I would prefer, but I think the one with the most potential, the idea with the most potential, is to adapt Hook into a Broadway musical.
Okay.
I see this as, I mean, look, like the big family Broadway musicals are like, those are almost always hits. And this really gives you the opportunity to have some big, impressive set pieces. It was going to be a musical at one point, the movie.
Oh, yeah.
But you could have, I think that it would be pretty easy to fit songs into this and stage it as a musical. And you know what? In that musical, maybe you don't have to have Tinkerbell make out with Peter Pan.
Right.
Like, you know, you could kind of fix some things, but also have like a fun kind of spectacle Broadway musical. And a lot of like, think about the scene we just listened to. Imagine that as a song.
Oh, that'd be so great.
Like the insults go back and forth. They could be called Bangarang, and
right.
Yeah. Why not give Hook some songs, or use Phil Collins songs there? Just I don't know, but that was in thinking about all these different ideas and the different possibilities. I think a musical version of Hook, because also it's going to appeal to the generation of parents of kids who would want to go see this.
Totally.
AKA at your generation, my generation as well. But I mean, come on, like you said, it's beloved among people of that, you know, born in the early 1980s. And now, you know, a lot of your generation has the income to go see a Broadway musical when
now with all this avocado toast we're eating.
Well, you know what? You have to make choices as a grown up, which is what they learn in this movie.
That's absolutely true.
And you know what, John?
Yeah.
You know what? Peter Banning would choose the avocado toast, but Peter Pan would go to the musical.
There you go.
So what do you want to do with this?
Like I mentioned, I had one that was kind of similar to your second idea involving Maggie and therapy. So, all right, here's the deal. We don't really know what happened to Captain Hook at the end of this.
Spoiler alert.
All we know is that this crocodile fell on him and then he just disappeared. and we are to assume that he's been eaten by this dead crocodile. I don't know.
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Very unclear.
It's very unclear. So let's say that he was brought back to the real world, and at this point he's forgotten about being Captain Hook, just like Peter Banning forgot about being Peter Pan, because I guess that's how the rules work with Neverland. So now he's just some old guy going by the name James Hooks, I'm thinking, who claims to be Captain Hook, but nobody believes him. It's like there's this thing in his mind where he's like, I remember sailing, blah, 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 with Smee and da-da-da-da-da, whatever, and fighting Peter Pan. And then enter Jack Banning, a psychologist who's doing a study about the mental health impact of becoming an orphan at a young age, inspired by the family, the orphanage charities and stuff like that. So in doing his work, he encounters James at one of his clinics, and Jack is startled, but he doesn't think in a million years that it's actually Captain Hook. But for some reason, he just can't get him out of his mind. And then after conducting some visits with him, he starts to believe that it's actually really him. And then remembering his plight to reconnect with in defeat Peter Pan 30 years earlier, Hook, he tries to help him out and everything. But since his father, who Jack secretly knows as Peter Pan, has passed away, he works with his sister, Maggie, to recreate a Neverland to help this old man kind of live out the rest of his life with some meaning and not being told just that he's crazy. And so in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a Synecdoche, New York situation where
I was just going to ask.
So, Dustin Hoffman still as James or whatever, playing Jack, Topher Grace.
Okay.
Because think about it. He could realistically be the grown-up version of Charlie Korsmo. And then for Maggie, I was thinking Abby Jacobson.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Took me a moment there, but okay. Yeah. All right. So interesting. So again, kind of going to the more psychological drama.
Yeah. It's the way I see it is like Synecdoche, New York meets Awakenings.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
So
with
Robin
a little
Williams.
nod to Robin Williams.
Little nod there to Robin Williams. So in this version, would Jack and Maggie remember Neverland?
I think so. I feel like there would be enough family bonding over this to remind each other about this.
Well, I guess they would have the books. Or
the books.
Well, the Peter Pan books.
Right. But remembering their own experiences, I think that, together they would be reminding each other enough about it. I mean, maybe it's the kind of thing where it's at this point, they're like, did that really happen? Or was that just something that we made up or,
I mean, it could also be that having gone through, the training to be a psychiatrist, Jack has himself gone through a certain amount of therapy and, has found that in his subconscious. So that's, and then so what do they just get a warehouse and.
Yeah. Well,
they buy the sets from Hook on eBay.
We know that they come from money. Yes, they buy the sets from, because they still exist. That's for sure. Yeah. So they hire Dante Bosco to reprise his role as Rufio.
Oh, that's funny. What else does that? Was there a movie? You ever see the movie Nurse Betty?
No.
Because I feel like there was a movie where, no, never mind. I'm not right about it. I feel like in that movie Nurse Betty, Renee Zellweger played a nurse who was obsessed. She was obsessed with this soap opera, and but
I never saw it, but I remember it existing.
Never mind. I don't think that I don't think it's similar, but yeah, the Synecdoche, New York thing definitely. that idea kind of jumped out at me with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right. No, that's
anyway,
cool.
you know, it's just like they feel pity for this guy, and even though they know the truth, you know, they want to be able to, you know, help him in a way that isn't going to hurt anybody.
Right. Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess you could finally like know and have Hook
because
die at the end.
Well, yeah. Well, also just like, here's the thing is it's like to do another Peter Pan, like rehashing type of situation. It's just like, how many times and how many different ways can you take this story and like bend it around? And it's like, why not just build off of this alternate version that's beloved and, you know, find a new way to kind of work with it. And also it's like, it wouldn't be for kids because like Hook now, I mean, I guess kids could enjoy Hook now, but like, I'm sure that it would feel really dated. And also it's just like, it was its own special thing. And the people who remember this movie and enjoyed it then would be the ones to enjoy this kind of like, you know, mind twisty, you know, psychological, not so much drama, but like fantasy type of situation.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting concept. And well, also just kind of thinking of the idea of how do you find your Neverland in reality, and how, you know, what do where, like, it's kind of like acknowledging like we all need our fantasies and we need outlets for those fantasies.
Yeah. You know, and I think that one of the things about Hook that as watching it as an adult, I was thinking about was like, maybe this is just a place that we go to in our minds. And it's like, the idea is that we, you know, there is no actual real place. Like this isn't like really happening. But then at the end, when Toodles starts flying, it's like, oh no, it's just real. Like,
well, yeah, that's,
you know,
another thing.
There's no attempt to keep you guessing.
But there is that is another thing that they're wishy-washy on in the movie, because at the end when he like Peter kind of like stands up, it's like, oh, what, did he fall out or but I guess it's real because Jack and Maggie are kidnapped and like they're
right, and the wall is all messed up, and there's like a giant dagger with a crazy calligraphy note on the door.
Oh yeah, really nicely written note.
Wonderful penmanship, that James Hook.
And that's why you always leave a note.
Dan, any more thoughts, or should we just move on to talk about our next episode?
No, I think we could. You know who's another possible, like, just another actor who I was like, oh, I would love to see them play Captain Hook? John Malkovich.
Oh, John Malkovich would be great. I was thinking if there was to be a straight up like remake, a good actor for Peter could be Jack Black. Because I was thinking about, like, you know, Robin Williams had a very like special and unique style of humor and way of speaking and way of being physical. And I'm thinking about people nowadays who really have their own special way of being. And Jack Black sticks out to me more than anybody. You know, he kind of exists in his own special category of person. And, you know, the things that he can do with his voice and the things that he can do with his, you know, movements.
Physicality.
You know, if you just watch the stuff that, if you watch the stuff that he does on just like social media, like on TikTok or Instagram, it's just like, oh, he is just having the time of his life making bananas stuff. And it's so good. And so like, I could see him really enjoying that. And it's like, you know, he's been doing children's movies, you know, it's in the Jumanji movies and
Gulliver's Travels.
You know, he's been doing Well, yeah, he's been doing it for a long time. So
Yeah.
School of Rock, if you would consider that one.
I don't know that I would consider it like a movie, like a kids movie for like young kids. School of Rock, but definitely like your tweens. I mean, I enjoy School of Rock. Great movie.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they made a Broadway show out of it.
There you go. Exactly. So and perhaps that is what the future holds for. Actually, that is probably the most likely thing, is that there will be a Broadway musical of Hook, and it'll be a huge, like, spectacular, stage spectacular. So.
Well, talking about musicals, let's talk about our next episode.
Oh, our next episode. So for our next episode, we are going to be talking about 1956's post-Civil War Western / drama / musical, Love Me Tender, starring Elvis Presley.
Elvis! Oh my God! What the fuck?
Elvis will be entering the podcast.
Yeah, our first time talking about Elvis. Famously learned to dance from Forrest Gump. And I'm excited. This movie sounds completely bonkers, and I am excited to check it out. It's my first Elvis movie to watch.
Mine as well. I'm excited to. It's funny because we've both seen like Top Secret 1,000 times, which kind of parodies some of the Elvis movies, and now we're jumping into the Elvis filmography.
Yep.
Nick Rivers.
Nick Rivers. So everybody, shoot us an email, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts about these movies. And visit our link tree, which is in this episode's description, and you'll be able to follow all of our social media stuff and check out our TeePublic store for all of our cool merch. And I don't know, Dan, anything else?
Hey, the holidays are coming. Don't neglect that Jesse Plemons fan in your life. Celebrate Oscar Isaac's like 1,000 new things that he's in. Are all like going to be on HBO, but check out TeePublic, and that's
what you got. Well, Dan, as you are whisked away to Never Never Land, I wish you and Tink a good journey.
Good journey.